Welcome to The Story Tinker, a Webtoons and Witcher podcast for superfans with scene-by-scene analysis. Featuring sharp co-hosts for a fuller picture, we dive deep into character psychology, relationships, and theories. We'd love it if you could like, subscribe, comment, and rate us on all podcast platforms and social media. For bonus content, you can support The Story Tinker on Patreon. Let's begin. Welcome to episode 3 of Midnight Poppyland, the Tiger Pops podcast. And today we have Aislene and Sarah. So would you like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm 𝗙𝗵𝗍. I'm from both the Feminist Critique and Disney Dives, and I'm pretty excited to be here.
I'm Sarah Hernandez. This is my first podcast I ever do, and so I'm excited, especially since it's a Midnight Poppyland one.
Awesome. We are all excited. We're all obsessed here, and that's why we're on this podcast. So episode 3, we finished off with episode 2 where Poppy just washed herself off in the bathroom and she's waiting at this train station, and Tora comes and looms over her. That's where we left off last time with the whole analysis of the shadow and the light. Here we are. And it starts out with Poppy listening to the sound of cicadas. I don't know how you pronounce that.
Cicadas.
And cicadas. Thanks.
Yeah.
You know, ironically, I lived in Memphis where there were cicadas all the time. I don't think it was pronounced cicadas here. Whatever the case is, some words I mostly read rather than hear. But anyway, I definitely heard a lot of I think we pronounce it cicadas over there. I don't know, but I definitely heard a lot of those over there. It was like roaring, like at night you couldn't hear yourself because they were just so loud. So anyway, she hasn't heard them for 3 months since she moved to the city. So we know how long she's been apart from 𝗔𝗃 from here, and she's thinking about how many pages did I leave. And she realizes she's missing a page, and it's the most important one. And she's like, "Oh, I have to recreate it from memory." Which I don't know. Doesn't she have a digital version? This is the 2000s, but whatever.
I feel the same way. Where didn't she have it on her laptop or something? But is it typed up or is it written? That's
maybe because some people like me, maybe it's a rough draft in a way. Maybe she just writes it down before she ends up typing it up.
It could be that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Poppy is really dedicated to work because she's like, oh, if I get back to the office now, I can still squeeze in a couple of hours of work. She's very dedicated to her work and a studious, responsible person. And then she kind of feels Tora hovering over her. She sees it as a shadow falls over her, and she looks, but at that point, Tora has already turned his back to her and started walking away.
Yeah, and she looks over, and she kind of just says to herself, is this just my imagination, or there's something going on with this guy. She's getting a bad feeling.
Right, and she feels cold, a cold feeling around him, which is very strange. And Tora at this point, he's a master of disguise and acting. He's far away and is slouching, and his hands are in one hand is in his pocket, and the other hand he puts up with his phone to his ear, pretending that he's on a phone call because he's observant. He picked up that she noticed him.
Mm-hmm. Well, exactly. And she looks over for a moment, right? And is observing him until somebody's like, hey, move it. You're in the way. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. And then the people behind her are talking and, saying some pretty mean stuff about her. Oh, these countryside people, they move so slowly.
I know what a jerk the guy is.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And she's like, I just got distracted. You don't have to be a jerk.
It's not every day that someone gets a bad feeling.
Yeah, and she's it's emphasizing the fact that she's from the country, the difference between country people and city people.
Mm-hmm.
So bringing it back here.
And I guess she's still trying to get used. I guess now that she lives in the city, because I saw somewhere that just barely she's in the city she's been in there for 3 months, or did she move there 3 months ago?
Yeah,
so it's still kind of new,
right? And it's a big transition for her.
Well, exactly. And she kind of mentions that oh, it's pretty crowded around this time because people from the city go out to the country for their vacation, right? So, and it's because it's a nice area and people want to go out into nature in the summer.
Yeah, it's actually we know that her birthday is in March. So, and her basically, I mean, from later, this is around March time, April, March. Sorry, not April, March, February, March. So it's either end of February or really early March here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is putting together information from like Patreon, I think, and later episodes where the level of obsession we have. So
That's fair.
Yeah. So anyway, and then suddenly, she's walking, she's excited to sit down and relax because she's emotionally drained and physically drained from her day with, Joel really cheating on her and her outbreak in the forest. And then suddenly she hears, left something behind. That's the first words that Tora says to her.
Is left something behind. And then she turns and it's actually a really pretty picture where she turns and then there's a full body shot of him just standing there, right? And she's like, oh, it's that dude from like the platform, the one I got a weird feeling. And she doesn't know what to say, but she, ends up like, I don't think so. And he doesn't say anything really. He just like pulls out this piece of paper and she's just like, God, he's just staring at me. What are you doing? Like, come on.
Right. And this is Tora's, classic tool. He's a master at like gazing at people intently and facial expressions and holding people's attention.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So then he takes like the paper out, reads a few lines, right? And then she's like, I think you have the wrong person.
Until, he tells her, touching interview, how long did it take you? Looks like hours of work to me, which this is Tora in his more like gangster mode, right? It's like, I got something that you want and I'm going to make you want it back.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So she's like, oh my God, it's my research paper, the missing page. And then he like folds it up into an airplane and then like throws it at her. Yep. Yeah, she ends up catching it. But because of that, action of catching it and her outfit having, from the crash earlier, it splits open her shirt and he ends up taking a picture because he needs some, information, right? But now he just looks like a pervert.
Yep. And, he's kind of like shocked. You see the picture on his face, like when he has his phone up and he's like, his eyes are a little wide, his mouth's open. He's like, oh, shoot, I didn't realize this was going to happen. And she colors
the picture at the wrong time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Like, it's that moment of like, I guess it's kind of like a trope in anime where it's like the pervert on the train sort of deal. And that's kind of what this feels like. It's the, oh no, the pervert on the train.
So I guess I don't read enough anime. I didn't know that was a trope.
Well, I think it was because like during the 90s and 2000s, there was like actually a serious problem with like dudes feeling up women on the train, right? So then because of that, it was used as like a thing in anime of like, the pervert there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that I love, she's already having a bad day, and this just made it worse.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And everybody's, like looking, they're like, what the heck is going on over there, right? So he ends up taking off his sweater, throws it at her, and then somebody comes over to, check on her, right?
Yeah. And that to me, that's Tora in a nutshell. Like he does what he has to do in order to get his like work done, but he's sensitive and he picks up on people's emotional needs right away. And he knows she's embarrassed, doesn't hesitate, takes off his, literally the shirt off his back and gives it to her. Oh, this guy.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Oh, exactly. Like he throws it at her and she's like, did you see the dude? Like the weird one with the long hair? And the woman's like, I don't know. I kind of saw him. But like he got off the train before like they even closed. And now she's stuck on the train. She can't do anything about what just happened. But the woman's like, you should probably go to the cops if he, did anything to you.
Mm-hmm. And he's so fast that like he's left the platform by the time she even goes to the door. And then you see him like on the steps of the train and he's like looking down. He's really like focused. And he's like, what the hell just happened back there? And he's flashing back to her, this vision of her like with her eyes wide open innocently and her shirt open. And he slips and he lands on his butt on the steps. So cute. And like, and then he has this like wide open eyes, like the cutesy face. And it's like, well, the second indication, because the first one happened before, that he is taken with her. And he again is thinking of her chest.
Yeah, and you can see how he is a little red.
Oh yeah, he looks completely dumbfounded. He doesn't know what to do, but he does end up cropping the picture so that he could send it to Ronzo there, right?
Yeah.
Who immediately responds with "Whoa, who's the cutie?" And he's like, "Really?" And you can tell that he's stressed because he starts smoking immediately.
Yeah, and he just goes back to thinking about her. Which again, him cropping the picture is just him being a gentleman again. He doesn't owe her anything. He doesn't know her, and he's just being a gentleman to her. And he knows that she would be embarrassed if that picture was out there, and cropped it out. And even though it defeats his purposes, right? I mean, I guess he's supposed to be getting as full frontal a shot as he can, but he's willing to give up the information that it would give him in order to protect her dignity.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's even a part where Ronzo's cute face, but where's the rest of her body? Just in case, being gross. And he's like, "Oh, I'm just kidding." And and he even mentions that vein in your head popping, and we see it.
Yeah, it's adorable. And it also talks about here, he's like, "Oh, don't beat me up. Last time I couldn't leave the hospital for 2 weeks." So, Ronzo, we see he's clearly his friend, as we've seen so far, someone that he gets along with, but also someone he has this interesting relationship with where he is beating him up. Or figuratively, literally, we're not quite sure. But, establishing Tora's reputation as a violent person, and also more like alpha in relation to Ronzo.
Oh, absolutely.
And then Tora says that he wants to find what connections she has with Goliath. Do you guys think maybe in a future chapter we might find out, or do you think that that's already not a thing anymore?
Well, I think that there is some sort of connection with Goliath. It kind of explains a little bit in some of the later chapters, but I also don't want to ruin stuff for people, so I'm a little bit hesitant to kind of mention that.
Yeah, right. But we know he wants to find out if there's a connection with Goliath. So yeah, people will read more, and we'll see more about that. And also, again, here he's like, he doesn't want Ronzo to keep talking about Poppy in that way. And he's like, "Cut the crap, I'll break your other leg when I get back." So again, he's he's using his intimidation and his violent nature to protect her already, right from the start.
Yeah, which is actually pretty sweet. So this is the moment where they finish up the text, right? And Tora's like, "God, what a nosy, sob," right? And then these two women come walking by, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's a cute guy," those tattoos, but how thrilling. And he notices them, but he's he has no interest. So he looks up and he's like, "Do you want my number?" And they're on board. They're like, "Yes, absolutely. Here we go."
You see by how they're dressed, the contrary distinction to Poppy. Poppy is she's innocent. She's a cutie. She's wearing pretty wholesome clothing. And these girls, they seem more mature and more sophisticated, maybe a little older. And they're wearing more revealing clothing. They're they're have their hairstyles and their hair color is a little more mature. And the distinction between Poppy and these kind of girls is made right away. And these girls, they see him, they're like, hot piece of flesh, we want him. And Tora's he's just what the hell are those talking about? So effing noisy. He zero interest in this kind of woman.
Oh yeah. So he ends up he gives them the number or whatever, right? So and they say things like, "Oh, of course he couldn't resist us," right? So they're like, "Yeah, we should probably call him up," right? And the one with the I guess purplish hair does it, and she's like, "Huh? What? Sausages?"
Yep. And we'll see a little bit later at the end of the chapter. But they just want to use him for his body. They're like, "Oh, he'll come up to our room. He might be interested in some of our toys." So they're like, they just want him for his beauty and his body. That's it.
I mean, don't we all?
Well, I always think about that. I was like, how would I feel about Tora if he was just average looking? Would we still be crazy over him? Like, I'd like to think that we would appreciate his personality. I think we'd be a little less obsessed, but
Okay, like, I mean, for example, what if he looked like 𝗙𝗵𝗄𝗃?
right. No, it's a serious thing, whether
What if he had like the same dressing style as Quincy has?
well, he would just be very glamorous then.
Yeah.
Quincy's beautiful too. Different look, but also gorgeous.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But by the way, physical appearance. So my undergraduate is in psychology, and one of the things that the professor said that was fantastic. He said that in psychology, there's a lot of things that are debatable and unknown, and we're not so sure about. But he said there's three areas that psychology has 100% found that is verifiable, and one of them is the effects of physical beauty on people's perceptions of you. And people think that people who are physically attractive, they ascribe to them that they're better, morally, smarter, more capable of leadership, more talented. And it's this huge blinder that, as soon as someone's attractive, boom, we associate all kinds of positive things with that. And I think about it a lot. And I've read about it in terms of psychology. I've read a lot of those papers, and it's something I really think about a lot because as a person navigating through life, and especially trying to get through ahead of my career, I think about how do I want to dress myself? How do I want to present myself to the world? And sometimes I feel very mercenary. I'm like, okay, I'm going to work. I got to put on my, my makeup and my, nicer outfit, or I'm going to school. And it's just the effect of how people do appear is just so profound, and such a part of our reality. And how we give people who are beautiful, we give them more slack, more interested in them.
Which is absolutely true, because there was a show on Netflix where they had they put some pictures of there was attractive ones, and then there were other people that were not as attractive, and they separated two groups, right? And they said hey, these are the horrible crimes that these people had done, right? And they used two different models for each one, and one of them was actually quite horrifying. It was she killed her child or something. It's not actually what happened, but they use these different models, right? And then they said, how much time would you give these people? And the people who were deemed less attractive got more time, where the people who were deemed more attractive got less time in jail.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that is absolutely true, is if you are more attractive, you get less of a harsh punishment. And it does make me think of this case in Canada. So this happened in the 90s, but it was the Paul Bernardo case. Him and his wife at the time, they were very gorgeous people who did some pretty horrible things. And I think that's why this case was so huge at the time, because people were like, but he's so handsome. How could he be, this horrible person? And it's yeah, nice looking people can also be psychopaths.
Yeah, and then but then you got some people making excuses for them, even when they prove that this handsome person has done something terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's the same with, I guess you could use the example of Chris Brown. There were still people who were defending him, when the whole thing with Rihanna was going on. This would have been 10 years ago by now, but still,
Right. And then, going back to Midnight Poppyland, a big part of the reason we're so willing to overlook Tora's thugness, besides for our his emotional backstory and understanding that he's trapped in this life, is his beauty. So, yeah. Yep.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So then it kind of goes into the thing where he says it shows him driving, and it shows her on the train looking out, and I don't think they can see each other, but they're right next to each other, saying yeah, I'll see you in the city. And then we see where the chicken sausages come from. And it's who the hell is Tora?
And I wonder, the old lady's husband, I guess. I wonder what he does, because she's oh, whose toe did you step on this time?
I do wonder, did Tora go into the shop one time and got treated unfairly, and now he's just going to give this number out for the rest, every time?
Yeah, this Fred and Fran will come up later, so keep that name in mind. Lily also connects a lot of things. She puts in these details, and we think it's just there, just as it is, but then it turns out it's connected to some larger theme. It's just such a pleasure to read. So intellectually, satisfying.
Oh, absolutely. Like I love this comic so much.
One thing I also noticed, like the fact that he's keeping pace with a train, to me, I think that it means he's driving really fast, because I think generally those kind of trains are faster than cars. But Tora is, a pretty reckless guy, and
I could see him as a speed demon. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. We have some reference to that later as well.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
Yep. Well, it looks like we're at the end of this chapter. This was, I don't know if it's shorter than usual but.
Well, it's a pretty baseline kind of chapter where it tells the story and it kind of leads you on, right? Because this was the chapter that, they put up, 3 chapters, right? And then you either fast pass or you decide to wait. So this was the one, and I definitely fast passed after this. So, and now I'm just stuck for life.
Right. I know. I fast passed as soon as I started reading the comic. I fast passed. What was I up to, man? Like maybe 25-ish or so was when I started. It was up to 25, and then I fast passed. And yeah, this is my for 50 cents a fast pass, worth it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I mean, and then I spend $5 a month on Patreon. So it's I just want all the content.
And, as someone who wants to do artistic things myself, I really believe in paying artists for their work. And this is a tremendous amount of work. And I'm like, yes, Lily, take my money.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's another reason why I either fast pass or go with Patreon, because and I will say Lily puts up a lot of stuff with her Patreon. So I feel like it is definitely worth the $5 a month for how much content that you get.
Sarah, are you on Patreon?
No, I can't afford it, but I definitely would want to, because I hear a lot of amazing things on there.
Yeah. Yep. It's fantastic. So what would you say, Sarah, are your overarching thoughts about this chapter and things that you've gleaned about their characters?
What are my thoughts on this chapter?
Mm-hmm. Or things that you've learned about who Tora and Poppy are from this chapter?
Well, around the time because when I was still new to this story, I'm oh, okay, so Tora's a guy who just uses his intimidation to get what he wants, and Poppy's a really hard dedicated person who's really into her work, and it's she never it's when she was looking for that last sheet of paper she was looking for, her important one, tell how much dedication she has to her work, and I don't know, and I guess she doesn't really want to mess it up.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, she's definitely more of a cross the T's and dot the I's kind of person. She's anxious about getting everything done. Yep.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, guys. Yeah. Well, I think we're good with this episode. And thank you so much for coming on and doing this episode together.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yep. Okay. Awesome. I will catch you guys later. Thanks so much. Thank you so much to my current patrons: Suzie, LadyLibris, Lily, Jenny, Molly, Veronica, Emily, 𝗪𝗏𝗱, 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 Anne Rose, Alexa, Misty, Joanne, 𝗪𝗏𝗱, Esther, 𝗪𝗏𝗱 People, Emily, Jean, Jen, Erin, Kate, Lily, Beckett, Miranda, Christine, Sadie, Kelly, Teresa, Mrs. Castaldo, Diana, Louisa, and Rachel. Your support is truly appreciated.